Hi, friends. Happy Wednesday afternoon. It's afternoon here in Phoenix. My name is Andrea Worley from the lifestyle blog, AndreaWorley.com. And I just wanted to jump in on Periscope today and talk with you guys about something that's on my heart a little bit. So the title of this Periscope is Don't Ever Be Embarrassed for Walking in Faith. And I feel like this is something that I'm walking in right now. Not I feel like, I am. And something that the Lord is just teaching me and growing me in this area. And so I wanted to share with you guys some quick thoughts. First, a little backstory. My husband and I are currently in the very beginning planning stages of church planting. We announced a couple weeks ago that we were going to be planting a church locally here where we live. And it's something that God has laid on our hearts for the last year, this planting a church. And so we took some steps of faith earlier this spring and started walking in that direction of what we feel like God has spoke on our hearts. And then we just announced to the public, I guess, and to social media, and a lot of our close friends and family already knew this, but it was just a matter of telling everybody. So we did that a couple weeks ago, and I would say not shortly thereafter, we started to face just some disappointments in our planning process. We started to face a few setbacks in our planning process and in planting, some things we thought we were going to be able to move forward on, we couldn't move forward on yet. And so it was kind of like we took a step forward in faith, but then had to put some things on pause, practicality wise and in the planning stages, because there's some things that need to be logistically figured out first before we can move forward in these other areas with church planning. And so on the outside, church planning is when you're a church planner, it's, nothing happens overnight. Churches don't just pop up overnight. You don't just say that you're going to plant a church and then tomorrow you do it. It's a process just like anything else in life. And sometimes people that are not quite familiar with church planning and how things work and just all the details, you can say you're going to plant a church and then it's like people expect results and they expect all these updates and all these things. And sometimes it happens that way and sometimes it doesn't. And so very quickly, because of these challenges that we were facing and just some things that came up, some opposition that came up, it was really easy to feel attacked and to feel like, the enemy is trying to attack us in this and we're not able to move forward the way that we want to move forward. And so we just continued to pray about it. We continued to seek the Lord about it and see what, the Lord would have to say about this time that we're in. And I really just felt like the Lord and I told my husband this, I really just felt like God just saying, don't be embarrassed for walking in faith. Don't be embarrassed for taking a step in the direction that I've called you to take, and taking a step in the direction I've given you peace about, because ultimately this is mine. And that was so comforting for me to hear and for me to have a peace about, and I felt like I wanted to share that with you guys today. There's things that God is going to call us to in our lives where He requires us to take a leap of faith. He requires action of us, and that can be scary, and that can be in our own strength. It can be like we want to do it in our own timing, but that's exactly what it is. It's taking a leap of faith, stepping out in the things that God has asked you to step out in. I was reading in the Bible, and I was reading in Matthew chapter 14, in verse 27 where Jesus and his disciples, Jesus walks on water and the disciples see him walking on water, and it says, they see him walking on water and they say to themselves, they're terrified. They say, is it a ghost? And they cry out in fear. And Jesus immediately says to them, take courage. It's I. Don't be afraid. Then Peter says, Lord, if it's you, tell me to walk on the water. And Jesus says, come. Then Peter gets out of the boat. He walks on the water toward Jesus. When he saw the wind, he was afraid. Okay, and he begins to sink. And he cries out, Lord, save me. So how many times does it happen that the Lord calls you to do something and immediately we step out, but maybe we're afraid, or maybe we're afraid before we even step out? And so Peter starts to walk on the water, and then he gets afraid and he starts to sink. And the Lord basically tells him, like, you don't have enough faith. Like, I'm going to carry you. But you've got to have faith. You've got to step out and have all confidence in me that I'm going to carry you. And I felt like that was such a confirmation and such a reminder to me that in this situation where God has called us to step out in faith, he's called us to walk on the water and to step out in faith, that we need to keep our eyes focused on Jesus, focused on what he wants to teach us, what he wants to tell us through this time. And as long as we keep our eyes focused on Christ, he's going to reveal to us in his timing, in his way that we don't even know yet, all the steps and all the things that we're supposed to do as it relates to this area of faith that we're walking out in. So I just felt such a peace when I felt the Lord tell me, don't be embarrassed for walking out in faith. Don't ever be embarrassed for stepping out in what I've called you to do, because that's where he wants us to be. Now, if Peter would have, just left at that point and been so embarrassed because, he lost all faith and he began to sink in the water, if he would have just gotten back in the boat and they got to land and just said, forget it, I'm done with this, and just left, he would have missed out on all the blessings and the teachings that Jesus had for him. But instead, he chose not to be embarrassed. He chose to still be with Jesus and to be with the disciples. So I wanted to encourage you guys with that today. Maybe you're in a place where you have taken a leap of faith, you've stepped out into some things that God has called you to do, and you've taken that first leap of faith, you've taken those first steps, and maybe you're just in a waiting period where you're just waiting to hear from the Lord and a piece about what he has next. I want to encourage you guys to keep walking in that leading. Maybe you're in a place today where you feel like God's stirring some things in your heart, but you just haven't taken that leap of faith out of fear. I would encourage you with the same thing, to continue to pray, seek the Lord, and to walk by faith in the things that he has shown you and the things that he has called you to. Big or small, little, big, whatever they are in your life. Don't be embarrassed. Don't ever fear and be fearful of walking in what Christ has called you to and walking in the faith in Jesus Christ. So I hope you guys have a wonderful afternoon and have a great day. Bye.